Coming up, the Angels get a win thanks to their star duo and 2 grand slams hit in the same game for Detroit. This is Locked On Game to Game, MLB.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game MLB. Local experts join us to recap all of the games for you from yesterday across Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. We thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani both hit home runs, and the Angels beat the Diamondbacks yesterday in Anaheim. Locked On Angels takes us through a fun win over Arizona.
Let's all breathe a collective sigh of relief as the Angels stop their 4-game skid and defeat the Diamondbacks 5-2 on Sunday afternoon. What's going on, everybody? John Frisch, one half of Locked On Angels. They didn't get it done against the first 2 starting pitchers in this series that the Diamondbacks put out there, but then they get it done against Zach Gallen, who is the best pitcher on the Diamondbacks. Because, of course, how else would Angels baseball go down other than them losing to 2 guys who aren't particularly spectacular? Like, they're decent, but then they actually get a win against Zach Gallen. Of course they did. And they did that because Mike Trout hit a solo shot, Mickey Moniak hit a 3-run home run, Shohei Ohtani added on with his 31st of the season. Reed Detmers was great through 6 innings, 2 earned runs, 9 strikeouts, so he had a great outing as well. Mike and I are going to recap this weekend series against the Diamondbacks, and we hope you'll join us on Locked On Angels.
The Cardinals got Jordan Montgomery in a trade from the Yankees last season, and last night Montgomery beat his former team with 6 shutout innings on the mound. Locked On Cardinals has more after St. Louis took 3 out of 4 from New York.
Jordan Montgomery shines against his old team as the Redbirds take the rubber match over the Yankees. Hey, it's JD from Locked On Cardinals, and after splitting the doubleheader yesterday, we were set up for a pitcher's duel on Sunday at Busch Stadium between the Yankees ace Garrett Cole and the Cardinals' hottest starting pitcher, Jordan Montgomery. And the day belonged to Montgomery, who kept the Yankees hitters off balance throughout the day, giving up 0 earned runs and just 2 hits over 6 2/3 innings. Meanwhile, the Cardinals offense tagged Cole for 2 runs on an RBI single by rookie Jordan Walker, and then another one by catcher Andrew Kisner. Brendan Donovan muscled up for a 2-run shot in the 7th inning off Jimmy Cordero, his 9th of the season, and the Birds go on to win it by the score of 5-1. They take 2 of 3 from the Yanks and head off to face another tough team in the Miami Marlins next for a 4-game set. For the latest updates and info, be sure to keep it Locked On Cardinals.
A rain delay in Chicago meant a late start for the Cubs and Guardians, and then a 4-run comeback in the 9th sent things into extra innings. After a very long wait, our Locked On hosts tell you how things ended up at Wrigley.
Oh, what a wild weekend for the Guardians in the Windy City. Mother Nature didn't want to let them play. When they did play, I'm sure nobody got any PTSD from rain delays and how crazy those games were. But the Guardians come home winners 4 out of 6 on the road trip between 2 wins in Kansas City, 2 wins in Chicago, as difficult as they were. I'm Justin Latta, co-host of Locked On Guardians. The bullpen made it difficult through some odd defense on Sunday night. Aaron Savali was great. The offense has been hitting all weekend, I guess the exception of Friday, but they did a couple good things in Kansas City during the week, and they hit well on Saturday and Sunday, and well enough to not have to be scared of winning a game, but they got it done. We're going to talk about those 2 series. We're going to talk about Jose Ramirez not being an all-star starter, which Josh Naylor snubbed, and we have to look ahead to the Braves that are coming to town, winners of 8 straight, and a team that hits a whole lot of home runs against the Guardians who, don't do that sort of thing. So tune in to Locked On Guardians for more this week.
Cubs lose an absolute heartbreaker on Sunday to the Guardians 8-6. They trailed 6-0 fairly late in this game and 6-2 heading into the 9th against all-star closer Emmanuel Clase and rallied in the 9th to tie it 6-6. But in the 10th inning, they inexplicably pitched to Josh Naylor with a base open, and the red-hot Naylor made them pay with a 2-run single. Cubs could not answer back in the 10th and cap off a 1-5 homestand, and now they've lost 6 out of 7. Right before this homestand, the Cubs were 2.5 games back. They are now all of a sudden 6 games back, and they go to Miller Park, or I guess American Family Insurance Field now this week to face the Brewers, where they basically have to win to keep their hopes alive of avoiding being sellers at the trade deadline. Just a really rough week for the Cubs. Not a lot of offense and some tough losses.
Jose Altuve's late home run put an exclamation point on the Astros win over the Rangers yesterday. And our Locked On Astros host gives us more information after the matchup between the top 2 teams in the AL West.
The Astros take a 2-1 lead in a 4-game series, and a game where Chas McCormick came through big with a catch and a 3-run triple. We're calling it the Chas called game. That's right. Sean Dubin started on the mound 4 solid innings, only giving up 1 run to the most powerful offense in baseball. And the Rangers' lead is diminished to 4 games as we look ahead to game 4 on Monday. Check out the latest episode of Locked On Astros. We'll tell you an update on Christian Javier, Framber Valdez, Michael Brantley, Yordan Alvarez, who were selected to the All-Star team, and why we think things are looking up for this team going into the second half of the season as they finish up the first half at home after Game 4 on Monday. So check us out on Locked On Astros. We're your team every day. Become an everydayer. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. Go Stros.
Coming up, the Reds keep pace in the NL Central. This is Locked On Game to Game, MLB. Today's edition of Locked On Game to Game is brought to you by eBay Motors. A championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same thing goes for your vehicle. So for parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check. Stay in the game with eBay Guaranteed Fit. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, and exclusions do apply. Welcome back. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game MLB. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. The Orioles didn't get onto the scoreboard until the 8th inning yesterday, but they still found a way to beat the Twins. Locked On Orioles has more after the win.
The 2023 Orioles will not, under any circumstances, be swept. They just will not. They come back with 2 in the 8th. The go-ahead RBI hit by pitch from Jordan Westburg, and the Orioles win it 2-1 over the Twins on Sunday to avoid the sweep, and they snap their 4-game losing streak. So they end the homestand on a positive note, but it wasn't a very positive series for the O's, who lost 2 of 3 to Minnesota. They scored 3 runs in 2 games. They had 1 run in the entire series in 25 innings until the 2-run 8th on Sunday. Some things to address with the offense, but the pitching looked good the last few days, and I think overall the O's will get back on track. Just a little bit of a tough weekend, but it's always good. They just needed 1 rally. 1 rally is all it took on Sunday to get the win, and I'll recap it all coming up on Monday's episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
The Reds and Padres went back and forth in the late innings before Cincinnati got the last laugh and the series win. Locked On Reds has more after the weekend.
The Cincinnati Reds exercise some San Diego Padres demons, and they get the series win. What's up? This is Jeff Carr from the Locked On Reds podcast, and the rubber match went to the Cincinnati Reds thanks in large part to a beautiful pitching performance from Andrew Abbott and Tyler Stevenson with a huge pinch hit 2-run homer. Absolutely beautiful to see the power stroke starting to return for Tyler Stevenson. That, along with Abbott and the return of Graham Ashcraft, this could be a huge series for a lot of different storylines for the Reds moving forward. But not to be outdone, the fact that they won 2 out of 3 against the Padres, a team that they have been want to face the last 3 years. Coming into 2023, the Reds were 1-12 over the course of 2021 and 2022. So the fact that they went 3-3 this year, big time. We got a crossover with Javi Reyes from Locked On Padres for the next Locked On Reds podcast. Make sure you join us.
The Giants and Mets took a close one into the late innings on Sunday Night Baseball, and our Locked On hosts tell you how the primetime matchup ended out.
The New York Mets won a series. I repeat, the New York Mets, for the first time in a month, literally, have won a series. All they needed was to turn the page from June to July, and the Mets were able to win a series. This is Ryan Finkelstein, the host of Locked On Mets, and on Sunday Night Baseball, we saw it. We saw a Mets team bend and certainly get very close to breaking. David Peterson only gives the Mets 4 innings. They went with a quick hook to get to a bullpen that's been faulty all year, and they tried to cough up the lead. They really did, but luckily, the late inning guys were able to hold on to it, and Pete Alonso, the Mets' lone all-star, gave them a little bit of insurance late with a 2-run homer, and the Mets take a 8-4 victory on the show tomorrow for Locked On Mets. I'm breaking down everything we saw from this series as the Mets hopefully look to get their season back on track.
Stone Garrett hit a grand slam that led Washington to a win in Philly yesterday afternoon. Our Locked On Nationals host takes us through that win.
The Washington Nationals beat the Philadelphia Phillies with a score of 5-4. Ryan Clary, host of the Locked On Nationals podcast, here with you. And on today's breakdown here, the Nationals, led by none other than Stone Garrett, getting that grand slam there to take the lead in the middle of the game. And guys, Stone Garrett, while he hasn't had his best production so far this season, the guy has now come up big for this Nationals team multiple times over. It's not just today's game. We've seen him with some big hits, especially on this nice little road trip. The Nationals have gone 6-3 on this nice roadie, you could say, heading back to home tomorrow to face the Cincinnati Reds. This was a much-needed series win and really just a great road trip overall, especially with the red-hot Cincinnati Reds coming in town tomorrow. I'll have you covered it as well. It's MLB Draft Week. I got you covered just like we do every single day. Locked On Nationals.
That's it for this edition of Locked On Game to Game MLB. As always, we thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. Now make sure you're subscribed to Locked On MLB and your favorite team's Locked On podcast on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts from. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.